Jesus Christ, man. 6 months ago, that was when I last updated the passive skill tier list. Oh my god. We've got our work cut out for us today, don't we, boys? Okay, so we're going to be doing an update to the passive skill tier list. Obviously, 6 months in Fire Emblem Heroes is like an eternity, considering how much the power creep is in this game. Look how much stuff has happened since I made that last video for the passive skills. So we're going to be taking a look at A-slot passives, B-slot passives, and C-slot passives, all of the brand new stuff that came out, and we're going to be putting them on a tier list. Now, I also have a little cheat sheet here so we can keep track of which skills came out that I did not have listed on the tier list prior. So, as far as ace skills are concerned, these are the 6 A-slot passives that we have access to now. We've got Attack and Speed XL, we've got Distant and Close Bonus Doubler, and then we have Crystalline Water and Verge of Death. So, I actually ended up adding a tier above even S+ here, the Chill Bruh tier. Which, I mean, there's only... Things that are in this tier are only going to be when Insys really screws up big time, right? So, Distant and Close Bonus Doubler, I only have one icon here to represent both, but, I mean, they're both generally the same skill. It's just one works for melee types and one works for range type units. I don't know what the hell they were thinking when they made that skill. I still, to this day, I don't know why they made that skill. It just takes a shit all over all of the other, like, passives below here. So, you look at Prime 4, how much upkeep you need to get the distant counter out of this, and then even then, it's still only giving you 2 stats plus 9, right? Like, this is giving you all stats up 6 with distant counter for essentially no upkeep whatsoever. So, it's just way better. Then we have the solo distance skills, which, I mean, they're just done. Like, there's no reason to ever run these anymore. You're just better off running this because you're getting more stats. There's a much less steep condition where you don't need to be solo to activate this, and it's just better. And then Bonus Doubler 4 had, like, no time at all to simmer in the pot before they just released a better version of it with distant counter tacked on. So, yeah, big mistake, in my opinion, to release a skill like this. Then we have Attack and Speed XL, which is pretty nuts for your player phasers. In fact, this skill actually skyrocketed in value with the Celica Ring, because the way that this works is, depending on how many spaces you or the opponent move before combat, you're going to be gaining some bonus stats, and then also non-pierceable DR when you initiate combat. So, with the Celica Ring, you're moving the maximum distance with this, and then you just get essentially 24 points of non-pierceable DR for your initiated combat. It's 12 points on the enemy phase if they have a damaging special. So, not quite as potent on the enemy phase, but it still works for dual phase, which is very strong. And Flared Sparrow, I had Flared Sparrow in S+, but I bumped it up. I don't think, like, as powerful and as insane as XL and Distant Bonus Doubler are, I still think Flared Sparrow was that much ahead of the curve when it came out that it could still hang with these two, so I bumped it up. Also, the Flame Tile support is probably the strongest terrain effect in the game, I want to say. Flared Sparrow itself has the easiest way to activate by just initiating combat, and then locking out range units from moving their full potential is pretty effective. Now, we do have warp effects like Celica Ring that can bypass it, but, I mean, overall, though, the Flame Tiles is still really strong. Then we have Crystalline Water and Verge of Death, which they're definitely upgrades from their other counterparts, Life and Death 4 and Solid Ground and Still Water, but they're not, like, that much better. They're pretty good, but they're, like, not as insane as you would expect. So, still pretty good skills, good enough for S+, and visible stats right now, that's where it's at. Particularly res, like, having visible res that's really high is pretty good in the meta right now, so that's definitely up there. I kept Prime 4 in S+. I mean, maybe you could talk me into bumping it down to S tier, but it's still pretty good, and it's more variety. Like, you can run it on a bigger variety of units than Distant and Close Bonus Doubler, which are for infantry only. You can give Prime to any movement type you want, so that's definitely an advantage. And that's pretty much all of the relevant changes. Like, everything else for the most part stayed the same. I think I might have bumped up Close and Distant Defense a little bit and Fortress Def Res, because, again, like I said, having the visible stats is very good, but instead of Fortress Def Res, you're probably just better off running Solid Ground or Still Water instead, and just focus on whichever defense you want to focus on. So there we go for the A-slot passives. Then we come to the B-slot passives, and I don't know what the hell it is, but every single skill they release has to be a B-slot passive for some reason. Look at this. I mean, you look at the list compared to the A-slot and the C-slot and the B-slot. There's like twice the amount of passives in the B-slot for some reason. Nobody knows why. Only Insys does. But, okay, so here we go. Obviously, the big debate here, or not really debate, the big topic, hot topic for the B-slot passive, Lagoo's Friend, right? Like I said, I don't know what they were thinking with Distant and Close Bonus Doubler. I really don't know what they were thinking with Lagoo's Friend. Like, this skill is like 10 other skills built into one, right? It's got Special Spiral 4, it's got essentially Buffer 4, it's got, what else does it have? It gives you bonus damage, it gives you, like, true damage. It gives you non-pierceable DR, so it's like the Flow Flight and Flow Feather both knocked into one. I don't even know, man. This skill does way too many things. Also, it just does attack -5 to the enemy as well. So, yeah, there's that to consider. They tried to balance it kind of by cutting your own pierceable DR in half. But that's not really that big of a deal anyway, because you're getting it back anyway from the non-pierceable DR that it gives you. So, yeah, just a stupidly broken skill. It's only for infantry, but you can also give it to tome units for some reason. So, like, magic or melee, doesn't matter. They can all make very fantastic use out of this. Magic units may not have the best special, though, to give it to, because they don't have Pavis or Aegis access or, like, godlike reflexes. So they're stuck running Flare for the most part. And if their weapon has -1 special trigger, they're not going to be able to use Flare with Lagoo's Friend. So it can be a little shaky on some of the tome units, but for the most part, I mean, this is still ridiculous. Okay, then also for the B skill, we have the two level 4 Far Trace and Near Trace skills. These, I think, are both in S+. They do a lot of damage, right? You're getting 7 points of free damage on your attacks, and then you just get Canto built in. Like, for the Near Trace, you get Canto minimum of 2, and then for the Far Trace, you get Canto with a minimum of 1. So no matter what, you're at least cantoing back 1 space, even if you're a range type unit. So that's pretty effective. You're moving your maximum distance and still being able to canto a little bit. So just insanely strong for positioning. And also you don't lose any DPS because you're still getting the extra 7 points of damage there. High Dragon Wall, another really good skill. I mean, this turning anyone into a makeshift gatekeeper is pretty strong. It also gives you some DR, but I mean, the real thing about this is just getting access to that warp bubble effect so you can stop the enemy range units from warping in. So this is a really good skill. The tier 4 Bulwark skills are pretty good as well. Definitely an upgrade over what we were running before for DR, like the tier 4 dodges. I think Bulwark 4 is just better. It gives you healing, it gives you the obstruct effect, and then it also does some stat drops on the enemy, and it's giving you DR as well anyway. So just completely better. No stat checks on the DR either. It's just first attack enemy DR, including their Brave Hit. We got Flow Flight here, or not Flow Flight. This is Wyvern Rift, right? So this skill was introduced on Rosado. Pretty insane skill, especially where the meta is shifted right now, where we recently got that Hareed from the Summer Banner, which gives the Frozen status effect, which can stack with Wyvern Rift. So you can really change the amount of speed necessary for enemies to get a double attack on you. So as far as tanking is concerned, for your like flying type defensive units, it doesn't really get much better than this. So with Frozen intact, you could essentially say the enemies need 35 points of speed higher to be able to double you. Now, not every flying unit has the speed capable to use it, but you don't really need that much speed. Like, only about 35-ish should be sufficient enough to make some full advantage of this skill. So, very strong stuff there. It also gives you some bonus damage as well. I think it's like 7 points or something like that of bonus damage. We can actually quickly check that out right here. Wyvern Rift. Okay, so attack and defense -4. If your speed and defense combo is better than the enemy's speed and defense combo, -10, excluding phantom effects. That's pretty funny. Then you deal +X damage, and then also reduce damage from enemy's first attack by X. So it gives you non-pierceable DR and bonus damage based on X. And then also the speed stat swing difference for getting a double. Very strong skill there. Okay, then we also have Potent, which this skill is pretty good. It's definitely better than the tier 4 dodge skills, I would say. It's not giving you quite as much DR, but it makes up for it by giving you that extra attack. So as far as DPS is concerned, this is one of the stronger B skills that also offers some defensive potential. So it's a very nice all-around skill. And if you can't double, for example, like against Wyvern Rift, which we just talked about, if for some reason you're not able to double attack the enemy, your extra attack with Potent is going to do more damage. And, I mean, just doing more damage is the name of the game, right? Just DPS the opponents until they can't move. Okay, this skill over here, this one is Clever Fighter, I think it's called. Yeah, Clever Fighter. This one was introduced on the new Amelia, so it's a pretty good skill. It's definitely good for your fast armors where you're getting null follow-up, you're getting non-pierceable DR, and then you're also doing one other thing as well. Hold on, let me just double-check what that was. Oh, we gotta look for Amelia, actually. Yeah, because they didn't update the skill list yet. So over here, we can find it. Okay, so Clever Fighter, attacking speed -4 on the enemies, null follow-up, 10 points of true DR on enemy brave attacks, and then null follow-up. Yeah, I guess that's about all that it does, but that's all it needs to do. Doesn't really need to do more than that. Okay, we have, this one here is Flow Guard 4, and the reason why I have this so high, it's a player phase only skill, which can be questionable, but it inflicts Scowl on the enemies, gives you full-on null follow-up, and then it also inflicts guard on them as well. So, if you're inflicting Scowl on a unit like, for example, Emblem Ike, who relies very heavily on his special to do any sort of damage, you can really mess with him, right? So, like, any way that you have to deal with Emblem Ike is going to be a bonus. So, this skill is pretty potent for that reason, and it's also accessible to flying and cavalry-type units that can move pretty far, so they can already be, like, very solid player phase options. We got Resonance 4 here. This is the new skill from the Emblem Celica. It's a pretty nice DPS option. It's cutting DR, and then it's also giving you bonus damage up to 12 points, which is pretty high. A lot more than some of these other B skills that were not doing quite as much. Like, it's giving you more true damage than Assassin Strike and Occult Strike, while also cutting DR, which these skills did not do. And then it's giving you true DR while also cutting DR, while only, like, Tempo 4 and Null Follow-Up 4 only cut DR and didn't give you bonus damage. So, really good DPS skill there with Resonance 4. Okay, what else do we got here? Alright, Link level 4s. These are pretty interesting. They're only good on a select set of units, though. Like, for example, Robin, who comes with it, and then also Chrom units and Lucina units. Because you got to use a positioning assist first, and then it's giving you the bonus stats, and then it gives you bonus damage based on the combined total of the two stats that it is representing here. So for this one, it would be attack and speed. And then you're also getting Canto 1 as well as a support. So pretty good skill, honestly. Like, a lot of DPS potential there with the bonus damage. You're getting some stat bonuses as well, and Canto 1 just for some positioning. But like I said before, it's hurt a little bit by the fact that you need to be able to reposition and move again to make the best of it. Alright, Potent Disarm is in the S tier as well. Potent Disarm is significantly better than Disarm Trap 4, obviously, which I think this one only gave you like half a null follow-up and then disarming of traps and Aether Raids. This one is actually like a solid DPS option for your dagger types, even if they're not running into traps. Like, if you're not playing in Aether Raids, this can still be a helpful skill, because it's still giving you the potent effect for the extra attack. And Potent 4 has no, like, it has restrictions. It's only for, like, melee-type units, but it's not movement restricted, so you can run it on Cavs and Flyers and also infantry types. This can be ran on dagger types, which are ranged-type units. So getting the potent effect on ranged allies is pretty effective. So I've got it in the S tier, still a little bit below Potent 4, though, I would say, because this one's giving you some DR protection. And, I mean, even if you're running this outside of Aether Raids, the real meat and potatoes of this skill is for Aether Raids, where you can stop traps with it. Alright, I believe that's about it. Well, Beast Assault 4. Okay, so Beast Assault 4, this is the skill from the Bride Embla. Now, this one, it nullifies your transformation condition, and then it cuts DR in half on the enemies. So, clearly, this is the best Beast transformation skill that we have in the game right now. And it's I mean, as far as like beast transformation skills go, you can run this on generally any beast. King Freyr, for example, who wasn't a fan of any of the other tier 4 beast skills at the moment, he can just run this and cut DR. So this is a really effective skill. And then we have some skills for the staff type units, Wrathful Tempo and Dazzling Discord. Both of them I have in the same tier, S tier. They're just options for your staff units if they want to mix it up a bit. Wrathful Tempo, of course, only for infantry types, and then Dazzling Discord can just inflict Discord as a debuff. It's not quite as, like, handy, though, because there's already a plethora of units that can do Discord as a debuff. And then finally, the level 3 split seal skills. So, let's see if we can even find any. I don't even know where I would have had them. Okay, we have them in the A tier, right next to the regular, like, single stat level 4 seals. They're not that much better. They are better, but, like, not even enough better to be in a separate tier than the original, like, seal skills. So, I don't know, man. I don't even know why they bothered making these, considering the power creep on other skills, for example, like in S Plus and Lagoo's Friend. So, kind of like a whatever type of skill. Still, it's not, like, awful, though, so it's at least in the A tier. And finally, let's go ahead and wrap this up. So, we have the C skill now, and this is where things are a little bit more balanced, as you'll notice. Like, I don't think S tier skills are that much worse than S plus skills. Like, there's still, like, a lot of good stuff within both of these tiers. So, right now, I would say the C skill is the most balanced out of all. Like, there's nothing really egregious in here. I mean, maybe you could say Breath of Life 4, but Breath of Life 4 does have its weaknesses. So, of course, Breath of Life 4 is the C skill, the hot new, like, plaything on the block for all these C-slot passives. It's really good, and it really counters a lot of, like, problem things that were in the game, such as melt damage and pre-combat damage, AoEs. All that stuff just gets rocked pretty hard by Breath of Life 4. However, it doesn't make you invincible. If the enemies are getting a lot of damage, not pre-combat, but during combat, then Breath of Life 4 doesn't really help you that much, at least in that one round of combat. Of course, if you survive and make it through that round of combat, you're going to get a lot of start-to-turn healing. But it's not like an invincible skill, and even on a lot of units, you can still opt to run other C skills as well because this is a support. So by having it on one select unit, you're pretty much giving it to your entire team. So it's not like that mandatory to have on everybody, but I would say this is a skill that you should at least have one copy of on the team so that everyone can take advantage of it. Okay, so we also have the level 4 wave skills now. Probably the most random skills for them to, like, give a tier 4 to, because the tier 3s of these were awful. And not only that, though, they really compartmentalized them even further by giving, like, movement restrictions, weapon restrictions. Like, the res one is only for dragons. The attack one is only for near attacking enemies or near attacking allies. And then, for whatever reason, defense and speed are just, like, given to anybody. There's no restrictions there. They all have different effects. I think the attack one is by far the best one, because this one is giving you 5 points of bonus damage for each attack that you land, as well as 5 healing for each attack that you land. So it's a combo DPS and also recovery skill. And then it also supports the team by giving 6 attack to all allies in 2 spaces. And then if it's an even number turn, you also get drive attack up 6 in combat. So just an insane skill. Like, overall, for sure, the best one. Then we have the res one, which is giving Scowl. It's giving res bonuses to your ally, and then it inflicts Scowl on the enemy. C-slot Scowl is pretty strong, so it's up there. And then the defense one, I think, is also pretty solid. It gives you tempo in the C-slot, which is a pretty good place to be getting tempo, all things considered. Like, as we took a look at in the B skill, you're not really going for tempo 4. I mean, you could, but you probably want to run something in these higher echelon of tiers as opposed to tempo 4 at this point. So having tempo in the C slot is pretty good. And then also the final one we have is the speed version, which is the worst by far. All it does is give you null follow-up. Like, really? That's the best they could come up with? Look at all these other skills that are giving null follow-up, like infantry null follow-up and then infantry speed tactic and things like that. There's just so many ways to get null follow-up that this is a very lackluster effect to be giving. But, I mean, it's still a solid enough skill for the A tier, but the rest of these, I would say, are definitely on a tier above the speed boosting one. Okay, then we also have the Crux skills, which, brand new addition. These are an insane, like, boost to the range skills where instead of enemies in 2 spaces, you're debuffing enemies that are in 3 columns and 3 rows. Pretty wide radius of effect, and then it also grants guaranteed follow-ups to your allies attacking in that same radius. So, pretty good effect there. Very strong support skill if you can somehow find extra space on your flying type units to fit that in. I mean, range type flyers can make good use of it because they can't run Snap. They can run Soaring Echo at least, so you can't run Snap. You would probably want to run a Crux skill on the range flyers for that reason. We have Beast Threaten as well. Now, Beast Threaten is actually a really strong skill. It does 7 debuff to the enemy's defense and then also inflicts panic on them at the same time. And it also pulses your special by 1 point. So, a really good skill, right? But the problem is that there's only 1 good beast unit in the game right now. Well, no, there's not 1. There's 2, right? So we have the Summer Nerthus and the Bride Emblem. I would say those are definitely the 2 beast units to consider using. And I don't really know if... I mean, Emblem, of course, can't run this because she has a unique C slot anyway. And then you can run it on Nerthus for sure. But outside of that, like, who else are you running it on? Beast units need to get a lot better before we can actually talk about this for real. It is a good skill, though. And then finally, we have Pulse Up Blades, which is just about as good as Times Pulse 4, I would say. I like Times Pulse 4 a little bit more because it's also giving you the post-combat pulsing. But where Pulse Up Blades shines is the fact that you don't need to be on maximum cooldown to get the pulse. So, like, you can just wait it out for a bunch of turns, and this will continue to pulse your special down to 0. While as Time Pulse only works if your special has maximum cooldown. So, pretty good skill, even though it's just like a side grade to Times Pulse 4. So, there we go. We covered all of the brand new passive skills. I made a couple of, like, minor changes to some of the rankings on some skills as well since the last time I updated this list. But I don't really think there's much need to discuss any of these things much further. So, that's going to wrap us up for this video, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below about all of the brand new passive skills they added. And I will catch you guys again on the flip side.